The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights has published an extensive report on the escalating human rights crisis in Myanmar, detailing the severe abuses committed by the military since April 2023. Following the military coup in 2021, Myanmar has descended into chaos, with widespread human rights violations now commonplace. The report highlights the military's brutal campaign of violence, which includes arbitrary killings, torture, sexual violence, and the forced displacement of millions of civilians.
Since the coup on the 1st of February 2021, at least 5,350 civilians have been killed, more than 3.3 million displaced, and over half the population are living below the poverty line, primarily due to military violence, according to the report.
One of the key findings of the report is the sharp increase in military reprisals, particularly through airstrikes and artillery bombardments, which have disproportionately affected civilian populations. These attacks have caused a significant rise in civilian casualties and displaced over 3 million people, contributing to a deepening humanitarian crisis. The military's crackdown has led to widespread poverty, with more than half the population now living below the poverty line. The military continues to impose its will through fear and violence, while essential services and governance structures have collapsed. The report underscores the systematic nature of these abuses, drawing attention to the military's reliance on arbitrary arrests, sham trials, and torture. In military-run detention centers, conditions are described as appalling, with widespread reports of overcrowding, inadequate access to medical care, and the routine use of torture. Deaths in custody are frequent, with detainees often subjected to beatings, torture, and other inhumane treatment. Additionally, political prisoners, including activists and opposition members, face harsh sentences under military tribunals, which are characterized by a complete disregard for the rule of law.
The report also documents the vast scope of detentions undertaken by the military. Nearly 27,400 individuals have been arrested since the coup, with arrests on the rise since the military's implementation of mandatory conscription in February 2024. Credible sources indicate that at least 1,853 have died in custody, including 88 children and 125 women. Many of these individuals have been verified as dying after being subjected to abusive interrogation, other ill treatment in detention, or denial of access to adequate health care.
A particularly alarming aspect of the report is the military's use of sexual violence as a weapon of war. Both male and female detainees are subjected to sexual abuse, including rape, sexualized torture, and humiliation. Women, children, and ethnic minorities, including the Rohingyas, have been disproportionately affected by this campaign of violence. The report also highlights the mental health crisis in Myanmar, exacerbated by the trauma of military violence. With the healthcare system in disarray and the professional capacity to address mental health issues severely limited, civil society organizations have stepped in to provide essential psychosocial support. However, these groups face significant challenges in reaching the most vulnerable populations. The long-term mental health impact of the military's actions remains a critical concern, with the trauma of war, displacement, and violence likely to have lasting effects on Myanmar's population. In its recommendations, the High Commissioner urges the international community to take decisive action to hold Myanmar's military accountable for its crimes. This includes referring the situation to the International Criminal Court and implementing targeted sanctions against military leaders. The report also calls for the immediate cessation of violence, the release of all political prisoners, and improvements in the conditions of detention. It stresses the importance of supporting grassroots mental health services to address the ongoing psychosocial needs of the population.
There is an urgent need for political will and leadership at the regional and international levels to demand and achieve a solution in the best interests of the people of Myanmar. It is imperative that member states, notably those with influence, work together to bolster and support ASEAN members to resolve this crisis and bring an end to the violence in Myanmar. Our office has proposed concrete ways to address key aspects of this self-perpetuating crisis. The flow of arms, other military material, and aviation fuel that is powering the military's campaign of violence against the civilian population must stop. The political process must be renewed, engaging equally with the National Unity Government, ethnic armed groups, and the democracy movement to define future solutions for the country.
The report is a stark reminder of the urgent need for international intervention to halt the military's reign of terror and restore human rights and dignity to the people of Myanmar. Bureau Report, India Today Global.